want to talk to you about black belt prep. So one of the things that's very important for students as they move up in their belt rank is they need to attend black belt prep at Advanced Red. As soon as they graduate to Advanced Red, that's when black belt prep starts. Now it lasts about 5 to 6 months, roughly about that time period, and gets them ready for their black belt test. It's very important to make every session possible. Now parents always ask, well, what if there's an emergency? So sometimes emergency situations come up. Make sure you're in clear communication with your instructor. A lot of times I'm teaching the black belt prep, but it might be a different instructor that's running that for that cycle. So the thing you have to remember is keep good communication. So if your child has 105 temp or 104 temp, don't come in, okay? That's okay. We'll figure that out and we'll work around that. But every possible session they can make, they need to make. So example, if somebody was like, well, there's a birthday party in the morning at this time, you know, that's something they should skip to come to black belt prep. It's that important, all right? They need to make sure that they're on progression towards their black belt. So there's 3 different cycles in the black belt prep. The very first lesson is very important because we size their black belt. And on the black belts, there's a couple different things we have to size them for. You have to size for the rank. So for a Kohai black belt, these are stars, and it would be the gold star. But the idea is we want to make sure we mark the belt on that side, we mark it with their proper name, and that's the right size belt because it has to fit a certain way because there's kanji on the side as well. So that stands for black belt right there. So we have to put that on that side, and this stands for Tetsu Shinryu right there, and it goes on the other hip. So we have to make sure they're sized up for their belt properly, and that's very important. There's one way to tie that belt correctly, and we gotta make sure it gets tied on them correctly, and then we get it marked with tape so we can send it off so it's ready for their black belt test. Because when they take their black belt test, that day when they take their black belt test, at the very end of black belt prep, and it's usually on a Saturday, possibly sometimes a Friday, but they'll actually be in the letter that's sent out. They'll test for that black belt, and when they earn it, they receive it that day. Now, the very end at graduation, which will usually be about a month afterwards or close to a month afterwards, the graduation ceremony, they're actually presented a sword and their certificate of rank. And that's actually in a nice picture frame, and that's when they present it at graduation. So the belt is actually on the day of the test. They receive it. It's very important we get sized in the very first lesson. So it's important to be here for that first initial lesson so you know what's going on, you know the dates. The instructor goes over all that in the very first lesson. And then they use a little bit of that time to work on their sparring. So now let me get to the 3 sections. The first section I just said is sparring. Now that lasts usually about between 4 to 6 classes. It depends on the cycles and how it lines up with the different events going on, but there's usually about 4 to 6 classes in each cycle, somewhere between there. So it's very important to make all of them. So at the very last session of each section, there's a test. So at the end of the first month to month and a half, those first 6 sessions, there's gonna be a test for their sparring. They have to pass that to advance and be able to go on to the next section test. The next section test is weapons. So that's going to be the next 4 to 6 classes. All these dates we go over on the very first lesson, but we'll actually let you know and update you on when we have it and when we do not have black belt prep. So it's important to bring a calendar and go ahead and plan it out. If there's any changes, we do get with you on that, but we set the schedule out in advance. Very important to make sure you make all the sessions. So the second session is weapons, like I was talking about. So there's 4 weapons they need to bring. It's their black belt training weapons. We want to see how proficient they are in those areas. So there's the nunchucks. That's one of the weapons they need to bring with them. There's the padded kaibo. That's another weapon they need to bring with them. They actually use this and they spar with this as well with their headgear. They need to bring their jo. That's the one that's about chest level. Okay, that's that one. That's the one that we use like a sword, kind of like this. Okay. And then the last one they need to bring is their bow staff. So the bow staff's a little bit longer. So that's the one they hold like this and they put it on their hip. Okay, those are the 4 weapons that they need to bring. On that second session, that's when we work with those weapons. The last session, once they pass that test, the last session is their self-defense techniques. So there's 4 different self-defense techniques we work on. There's a 2-hand choke, there's a 1-hand grab and punch, there's also a rear choke where somebody comes up from behind and they grab them like this. And these are moves they've worked on in the classes for the past year up to that point. And the last one's a bear hug from behind where they get grabbed like this. So those are the 4 different self-defense techniques that they're gonna test on at the end of that cycle. At the very end, if they pass the first, the second, and the third, they go on to the black belt test. And that's usually the following weekend. Now the thing about the black belt test is they have to pass all 3. If they fail one, we put them back into the next cycle is what we do. So that's very important that you're making all the classes, and then you make those individual tests. There's 3 section tests. If they've passed all 3 of those, that means the instructor really feels confident in their ability to go take the black belt test. So it allows us to sharpen up their skills. It allows us to see what their fitness level is, because we do work fitness in there as well. It also allows us to see where their basics are as well. Okay, so we want to see all those things before they go on to that black belt test. So it's very important that you make your first session and you support your child in this last endeavor, this last leg of the journey towards their black belt test. Now the black belt test, we go over a little bit more information later on, but the main thing about that test, it's a difficult test, and they have to be mentally and physically prepared for it. And black belt prep is a stepping stone that helps them get ready for that. And it's required for them to take the black belt test. Thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you at Black Belt Prep.